Are we here? Can you see me? Sorry, my thing hasn't loaded to show me yet, but it seems like I'm here. Hello everyone, how are we doing? Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. My side, there we go. It's finally loading. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. How are we all doing today? Long time since you've been on a live. It's good to see you. Good evening. Good afternoon. Junior, P, Rico, yo, everybody. James, what does Leon mean for Harry Amas? Not good things, does it? Yeah. Missed your lives. Yeah. Well, like I said, last week wasn't feeling well and keeping it end of last week and over the weekend. So, yeah, feeling better now. All good. Why are recruitment teams not trying to sound on too well now? Maybe it's just a position that's not seen as much need, but we can talk about it all. What's good, everybody? A lot's been happening. It's never quiet on the United front, is it? Hello from Nigeria. Hello. Never quiet at United. The male model himself. I don't know about that. Short, fat, short and dumpy. I mean, maybe not fat, but. Do you see us bringing in established left back in January still? Potentially, yeah. We'll talk about it all. Am I putting my highlights on? Like in my hair? No, I'm going gray a little bit, though. I've got some gray hairs coming through. My hair's a little messy. I have a haircut Friday. It's getting a little unkempt, but I have gray. I'm starting to have gray hairs come through on the sides. So probably if I keep doing these videos in a year or two from now, I'll have even more gray coming through on the side. I know what you meant. I'm just teasing. I know what you meant. Yeah. We'll do it like this. We'll have all our sections and we'll have our yap section and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, look, this is the subject of discussions. This is the subject of discussion. We're going to talk about Diego Leon, who I really know nothing about, but a lot of people are highly rating him, and obviously United are highly rating him. So we'll talk about him and potential for other left backs. Talk about the Dan Ashworth thing. I put a whole video out yesterday on top of the podcast on Monday explaining everything that's been going on and everything that happened, and tying it into some of the updates that I made earlier on this channel and in Patreon and things like that. And I'll answer your questions on all of that. We'll talk about some more transfers in terms of outs and sales and things like that. And then we'll leave a little bit of time for yap. I don't think I can handle an hour and a half. I'm a little stuffy still, and I don't want to push my hour and a half lives like I have. Recently, when I've been doing them, I've just been going, and suddenly it's been almost 2 hours, and I'm like, holy shit. Anyway, but regardless of that, yes, we're here. Let's talk about all of this stuff. Diego Leon is his name, right? Diego Leon, is that correct? God, it's so early in the morning. Yeah, Diego Leon. So strong, big, physical left back from Paraguay. This looks like another, one of these, like, I would say Kone signings. Good evening from South Africa. Hello, my friend. Another one of these kind of Kone type signings. He's apparently quite big. How big is he? A physical player whose physical qualities are very high. Does anybody know what his height is? I saw some mixed numbers about. One of them didn't seem right, that it was like incredibly tall. I don't think that's the case, but he's like 6'2" plus, right? Like a big boy. Like he's a big kid. He's a big kid, and we do need some size in our team, but but a very, very physical. Yeah, I saw like 6'4", but like I was like, well, that can't be right. But he's like around a 6 foot mark or something like that, right? I don't know. Either way, he's physical. He's only 17, so still growing. I don't know what 181 means. I'm American. He's 6'4". Yeah, FIFA has him at 5'10". FIFA always has it wrong, but like that's why I've heard ranges between like 5'8" and 6'4", and I'm like, I don't know what is accurate here as to how tall this kid is, but apparently one of the big factors. Let me see. Fucking, you watch a video and it's just got steak ads all over it. It's so annoying. Apparently one of the major factors is just his physical profile either. Okay, so like whether he's tall or not, he's built big, built strong, Antonio Valencia build, you know what I mean? Antonio Valencia build type of like meaty player, and I think that's he's a big dude. He's a big dude. Yeah, in that respect, he's built, and that's the physical profile that I think is required in order to, make this happen, right? And that United are looking for. The concern with Harry Amos has been for sure his physical profiles, right? His physical profile. That was the concern in summer. When you watched it in preseason, I think very accurate. He looked well behind physically the Premier League players and even other top league players in preseason. And that's the issue. And the physicality has been a problem at United for ages. And you remember there was a video last year where I spoke about this, where I said, look, we're talking about the injuries and things like that. And I said, hey, it's not just Ten Hag's fault here. Love United, hate the... I can't see the full username. Love United, hate the ops. Oh, okay. Apparently, a current player is doing the team leaks and the player is fit, and it's not Garnacho. Apparently, all the ITK and club know who he is. I don't want to get into the subject. I did explain last time why I don't care that much specifically about team leaks. Anyway, but fair enough. Harry, God, where was I? Yeah, Harry Amos not being physically ready. But yeah, I did a video last year. We talked about like the injuries. It's not all Ten Hag's fault. One of the big problems in the team is a very low lack of physical flooring, inability, physically to deal with the demands required. And it's true. One of the reasons United are bad at set pieces is a low physical flooring, right? That's facts. One of the reasons that we've struggled to play 90 minutes is a low physical flooring, where we cannot sustain things for 90 minutes. It's an issue at United for sure. And a lot of the signings that they're making seem to fall in the bracket of in raising the intensity, raising the energy. Ugarte, I think, has very much, as you can obviously see, raised the physical flooring of the midfield. He can keep up with the game. He can do it. He's very physical, he's very aggressive, all of that. But there's a number of players that don't. The concern, like with Lisandro Martinez, is that he's a physical player, but his physical flooring is actually rather low. He's small, gets kind of pushed around a little bit, isn't fast. It works in a slower league where you can rely on that passing and the moments of aggression, but it's tricky. And it's obviously a lot more than him. You get older players. Eriksen can't make it in Amarim's team. Low physical flooring at this point in his career, age-wise. So, that's very interesting, this Lyon thing. And the other thing it obviously tells you is in his first season, in Lisandro's first season and in Ten Hag's first season, we essentially went back to all a counter-attacking football, right? We dropped one of the lowest lines in the league, I think the lowest, maybe second lowest in the league or something like that. And we were playing a deep block, and so there wasn't that as much, and that was really just to lower the physical demands of everybody but the forwards. And the forwards still had high physical demands to run in the counter and things like that, but the rest of the team was more deep and narrow and compact. Leon, Obi, Kone are all big physically. Yeah, totally. And, Mazraoui as well, tall and strong. Xerxes, I think the idea was he's a big player too. We'll see how he works in the long run. I see some signs of him having good physical traits, like he doesn't get bullied, he doesn't get pushed around, he's able to deal with the pressure of individuals well. Just some of the execution's been off, but physically I actually think Xerxes is better than he needs to put a little bit more oomph in it, but we saw it in the game against Everton that he can. Lenny Yoro, look, De Ligt is a very physical player too. For some of his flaws that he has, he is a physical player, a very aggressive physical player. So I do think the profiles of everyone we've been signing have been very much within that scope of raising the physical profile, and that's good. But regardless of that, left back. I've as I've been saying for like months and 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 months that United are looking at left backs. For a long, long time here, I keep repeating, United are looking at left backs. People are talking about strikers. People are talking about, attacking midfielders and all that. And I keep saying, listen, it's the left back. Left back is the only position. I think you'll recall in the video I said last week that they were still making assessments and things like that. And I told you that the left back is the only nailed on position. The only one. And so it's no surprise to me that that's the first move United are making. And I didn't know anything about Diego Leon. This is one of those out of the blue signings, right? And the news first gets broken from these from South American reports and things like that. And I got a guy in my messages that I need to get back to that messaged me overnight talking about this, saying United are into talks for Leon, and he says it's very close now, and it's around 5 million US. I think that's about 4 million pounds, and he'd arrive in June 2025. Now, yeah, this would not be for January because of his age. He has to join in summer, right? So it would not be for January, but likely United want 2 left backs. But like I said, they've wanted a left back. It was the only non-negotiable position, as far as I understood it, that had nothing to do with the assessments Amarim was making because of the physical problems with both Luke Shaw and Tyrell Malacia. We've seen Tyrell Malacia come back, but as you can tell, physically, I'm not sure he will ever be up to the level that is required. And Luke Shaw is just a walking injury, and unfortunately. And so it's very likely we need 2. We need 2. And so it's quite possible that both Shaw and Malacia could be gone coming this summer, for sure. It is very, very possible. All capitals here. Just want to say it's a joy to watch your lives, not scaremongering or overreaction, just logic and understanding. I appreciate that. With Ashworth gone, do you think the Braithwaite ship has sailed? No, we'll get to that. So on the left back front, it's still my understanding that they would likely want to sign another senior player. Because again, we're talking about a full kind of overhaul here, and it doesn't matter if you have one young player who's come from Paraguay. That's not a guarantee. You want a senior player too. You want to have rotations. You want to have multiple profiles and things like that. So I think that it's still very likely that there's another signing in the works here. However, I have been thinking about this. Well, I'm not sure this works. If you sign Kenda and you go with lefties on the right, then I guess your left backs could be Mazraoui and Leon. And you'd have one lefty, one righty. But I'm not sure that works, because then you still only have one option if you want a left footer. And I'm not sure that that's ideal. But I was just thinking about it anyway. But we'll see. We'll see. We will see what happens. Yeah, because of Brexit rules and things like that, you got to wait until they're 18. So he would join in summer. But apparently United are pushing on it, and they hope to get it done. But yeah, it would be for summer. It would be for summer. But ideally, they want 2 left backs on in the end. Give me 1 second. Just didn't want to blow my nose on here. Anyway, yeah. So apparently, yeah. So I would say that they would like to get a second one in. Mike McGrath wrote an article linking us to as well Alphonso Davies, but just given saying it's unlikely at the moment, which is, as I say, correct because of the interest of Madrid, and so the unlikelihood that we could make that deal, but it as you can see by what he said in that article, Davies is the ideal. Davies is the kind of the model of player that they're looking at, and so I wouldn't rule it out totally yet because there's been unlikely ones that we've pulled off already, like in the instance of Lenny Yoro. So we'll see. But that should tell you that that is what United are looking at and what they want. So important. We need a left back. You know, again, it's the one position that I said that was not up for debate right now and that they wanted to sign. And now they're doing it. So I'm very encouraged by that. This speaks to Vivell and Jason Wilcox getting it done and doing these kinds of moves because it's two ideas. You get someone for now and someone for the future, right? Someone for the future. And that way you're prepared for the next 5 years and it can slow down. Amrabat said in summer, asked Mr. Wilcox why he didn't stay. Was he in charge of transfers? Yes. And we'll talk about that in the Ashworth thing because I mentioned this yesterday, but there was some definite bullshit when it comes to who was deciding on transfers and who was an influential voice on transfers. This is one of the reasons why they may not bring somebody in. So let's probably no Alvaro Fernandez. No, this would definitely probably remove the idea of an Alvaro Fernandez from signing. Yeah. Let's talk about the whole Ashworth thing. Did you all watch my video? Everybody who's here, did you watch yesterday's video where I went through it all? I guess I'd probably repeat it, but yesterday's video got most viewers within the first 24. So I think a lot of people did watch it. So I don't have to rehash all of it in today's live, which I don't necessarily want to do. Yeah, I appreciate the jacket in that video. What was I wearing yesterday? The sweater? Was it a sweater? I don't remember. Yeah, I seen the size of Leon's arm. Like I said, he looks like Antonio Valencia to me. Like that big tank build. You're my morning newspaper. I love that. I appreciate that, man. Anyway, so yeah. So a couple of things I did want to mention on this. Do you think Matthijs de Ligt is a key player in the future? No, I think he is. I think he could play in that center back role, and he's going to work to get him more out there. Hope you're feeling better. Hey, Ranabir, good to see you, man. Long time. Hope everybody's doing well for you too. But yeah, let's see. What was I going to mention? On the summer transfers, there was some reports that came out that everything was done based on Ashworth, and I think the intention of these articles was to kind of shit stir and drive it like, you know, that like all the business was bad and cast doubt on it. What the fuck's up with that? Or cast doubt that the guy who made all these goods, like it was to do one or the other. It was to make it seem like all our business was bad, or to make it seem like all our good business we did was driven by the guy who's out. Neither of those things are true. We did good business this summer. Lenny Yoro was a target since before January, way before Ashworth was anywhere near. Way before Ashworth was anywhere near. You know, Braithwaite has been a target for 18 months, way before Ashworth was near. This wasn't INEOS damage control. This is, to me, journalist shit stirring, trying to make it, one way or another, trying to make this all look like a disaster that Ashworth is leaving. It's not a disaster. Not even a little bit. Lenny Yoro, Braithwaite, who we didn't sign, but we did go for. No, it wasn't but the thing is, if someone was trying to blame it on Ashworth, they'd be trying to say we did bad business. We don't think we did bad business. INEOS don't think we did bad business this summer. Nobody thinks we did bad business this summer. We actually think we did good business this summer, but wanted to do more, and there were some things that held it up. Um, excuse me. Sorry. Just the after effects. But yeah, Braithwaite, we've been targeting for a long time. Euro targeting a long time. Xerxes, you can find a story back from December. Michelle, I think, who's a good journalist, said that we were looking at Xerxes back in December. Back in December that we were looking at Xerxes, and Jason Wilcox wanted him. Ugarte's been someone we've been looking at for a long time as well, that Jason Wilcox specifically wanted. Also, Sofian Amrabat specifically called out Jason Wilcox by name as to why he wasn't signed. So Wilcox's paws were all over that whole midfield situation of Scott out, Ugarte in, Amrabat staying away. This was not a window driven by Dan Ashworth. Yeah, of course he signed off on signings like like on some of them and all of that, but it was a great window. Yeah, like right now, Xerxes is the only player I have questions on. De Ligt is a solid signing for the money. Mazraoui is an amazing signing, maybe the best value for money signing we've ever made. Right? Ugarte is looking really good. Lenny Oro, no problem. So I honestly, it's just Xerxes that we have a question on. That's all. That's really it. So, yeah, solid business. The thing that INEOS didn't necessarily love about Dan Ashworth, and one of the things that they didn't want this summer, or that they wanted to do more of this summer, is sell. They wanted more players out. They wanted to be able to move Casemiro, Eriksen, Antony, and potentially like Lindelof and such others so that they could get more signings coming in. And they did not think it was that ruthless. And one of the disagreements that they've had with Dan Ashworth is over the profiles of players that they want to keep and sell. Now, all the time you get stories that everybody's for sale at United, things like that, right? And look, to be fair, the truth to it is that every single player has to prove themselves. But more importantly, they're trying to build a team in a very specific way. And who falls outside the lines? Well, a huge part of that is the physical profiles of the midfielders and the back line. So guys like Eriksen, Casemiro, because of their ages, wages, and all of that, they're falling outside those lines, and among others. There's also, they wanted him to look at the academy more and say, here's all these borderline first-team players that we want sold. That if they're not going to be in the first team in the next year, like I'm going to give you an example, and I know people aren't going to like this. What should we do with Ethan Wheatley? My opinion, sell. What should we do with Toby Collier? My opinion, sell. And I believe that that's the perspective of people in charge. They're not first-teamers. They're not going to get in the first team. Sell them. Why wait another year? Why wait another 2 years when they're not going to be in the first team playing at that level? And that's the view of the people making those assessments. Sell, put buybacks, put sell-on fees, all of that. Toby Collier's like 21 years old, dude. Like, he's not this like 18-year-old. You don't loan. I don't think there's a point in loaning him at his age. Just sell. And that's part of the assessment, because you could get $5 million for Collier, $10 million for Wheatley. He's a good player, but maybe not for us. But those are huge, huge profits that we are missing out on, wasting time with players that aren't going to make it at United. At least not now. Maybe they could in the future. Just sell. Just go. You know what I mean? Hamas now, if we're buying Lyon, sell. But they need that. And it's not about like being ruthless to the kids and not valuing the academy. It's not, why waste another 1 to 2 years of players who are getting into the senior level not playing senior football? What's the point? What is the point of that? There isn't any. And those are the transfers that help you make a lot of business. Those are the transfers where Chelsea can spend $1 billion and somehow they still have money because they've made so much profit on academies, and they brought players back. I mean, they did this under, what's his name, under Abramovich, with like Lukaku and De Bruyne and things, and they made mistakes selling the wrong players, but then they brought them back and they failed and things like that. But just sell. Those moves give you massive financial leeway. If you can sell 2 academy kids for $15 million, that funds half of your transfer business for the summer. Like, it's that crazy how big it is in terms of PSR. And that's the system. That's the PSR system. You could say that it's a dark, in a sense, that it encourages you to be more, to sell academy players, but that's the reality that we face, and PSR is tight. And so those are the decisions that they want someone to really look at, not sit on them and all of that, and then bring players in. Wheatley's a good player. Wheatley, I think someone would pay. I think you could sell Wheatley in the championship or somewhere for $10 million. Like, he's a good player who's shown in the physical, that he has the physical levels, but they need to go. If they're not in the first team, if they can't make it into the first team, they need to be playing regular football somewhere, and we can have a buyback, and that would be great. So yeah, that's my hope. But that's one of the things that was part of their discussions as well, is like, hey, we need to be doing a lot more about this. The fact is, we've been bad at that. And when you look at, we talked about the academy players, when we talk about like all these kids coming through, right? Salchita. When you talk about all these kids coming through, realize maybe one will make it at United. Maybe one. And the other ones, when they're 18, 19 years old, they need to be playing first team football. And you get them on loan 1 year. If you still don't think they're ready, you sell. And we need to be better at that. We need to be better at that. We really do. We really, really do. So that was one of the things that they like. Yeah, strikers go for a premium. Strikers go for a premium. And Wheatley could be a good goal-scoring striker in a championship, in my opinion. I think he can. Yeah, only Rashford made it from his set. I mean, it's not that many players who made it. Scott McTominay made it through a certain route, which was a little bit odd. And one could argue he shouldn't have been that much time, but yeah. But still, he did, and he's obviously a good footballer. But physically, miles ahead. Like, there's players who physically are so advanced that you can see that they have the physical traits to make it right off the bat, and there's a lot that don't. But regardless, yeah, that's one of the big things that they want. And then the other aspect was building the right profiles for Ruben Amorim. And that's why one of the main reasons they did this now is they did not think Ashworth was in alignment with them on what those profiles were, on who they wanted to sign. But Vivell, Wilcox, all of them very much in line with Ruben Amorim. Very much in line with Ruben Amorim. And Omar Barada as well. So yeah, very important. I think that, Kabi Mainu, I think everybody has to prove themselves to Ruben Amorim. Everybody. He's got, he's got a, what do you call it? That's just where it is. It's a fresh look for absolutely everybody. What was Ashworth's job specifically? Well, Ashworth was, as he described it, the center of the wheel, right? Where you have all these different things, all these different parts of the club that need to be coordinated. And his job was to do that and coordinate on who to recruit, on who to sell, on women's team, on all of this kind of stuff. The part of the thing that's gone on, and where this will probably, like I said, I don't know that they're actually going to hire someone. I said this a couple of times. That's what I've heard, that Wilcox and Vivell will very likely take over the majority of this job, because they've come in and they're already two very competent people who've done these jobs. And they may not need a whole sporting director on top of it, especially with Omar being involved. I think this was confirmed by Sammy Mockbell yesterday, who said that they may bring someone in, but it's unlikely to be a sporting director. It's unlikely to be a sporting director. But if he was feeling powerless, that isn't fair. Well, that's not where it started. What happened was, the issue was that he came in and was indecisive in their eyes. And Omar kept overstepping him because he felt he was being indecisive, you know, and it felt that better ideas were coming from other people. And so they stopped trusting him. And I don't think that's an all-in-one thing. That's something that happens over the span of months of decisions and things like that, you know. And Vivel was brought in after Omar. And it is interesting because it's a lot of people coming in to do these jobs, and I think it's enough. But over time, you know, Dan Ashworth, other people came forward with better ideas and were more decisive in their action, and that led to him not being trusted to run the show and make the decisions. Yeah, I've got concerns over the women's team aspects of it as well, as obviously that was something under the purview of Dan Ashworth that probably isn't so much under the purview of like Jason Wilcox and Chris Vivel, right? But but at the same time, you know, you could bring somebody in that could deal with that kind of stuff, right? Without needing a whole sporting director. And, you know, like I said, I think that they did do some good moves in the summer for the women's team. They did sign players. They did do work. So it's not like it was totally ignored despite certain things. But yeah, I don't think you need a whole sporting director to deal with that aspect of it now. I think what'll likely happen is Wilcox and Vivel will take on more. Darren Fletcher will take on a bit more, and they'll bring somebody else in to kind of assist with coordinating some of this stuff, and that's pretty much it. So, jeez. But yeah, it just didn't work out. Right? And at the end of the day, you know, the biggest trait that I value, you know, I own and run businesses. No, Barada did not have a say in Ashworth's hiring. I mean, they probably told him we intend to hire him when they spoke with him, but they were planning on that director before they were planning on a CEO. I'll tell you that much. That plan for a director was like when they first made their bid for United, they figured Dan Ashworth or Paul Mitchell, like a long time before it was all done. But at the end of the day, you know, there's a couple of ways to look at all of this. The fact is they knew him personally. They liked him personally. They still got rid of him. I don't think anybody's ever going to get every decision right. I own and run businesses, and the best trait that I can say in people who succeed, who make it, and who I value myself is not that they get everything right, because nobody does. I was excited about Ashworth too. I thought it was going to be an amazing move. Nobody's going to get everything right. But it's way more valuable, the ability to quickly acknowledge you got something wrong and fix it, than anything else. That is so valuable. It's so valuable. It means absolutely everything, because very few people actually are capable of admitting when they got it wrong. They just won't. You know, they just won't, and they'll just stick with it on that basis. But the ability and the willingness to look at that and say, we got it wrong, let's fix it and not wait and see, is a positive trait. They did that with Ten Hag. They did that with Dan Ashworth. So they got some things wrong. They're correcting them, and they're correcting them quickly. How long did it take us to not correct the problems that we had at United? You know? But I do think that that one of the things that should change is the involvement of Sir Dave Brailsford on the board. I don't think he's got any qualities for a football team. You know? But ideally, it's more of an inactive board seat anyway, right? And now that, you know, part of the problem was because Omar wasn't there and other people weren't there, INEOS were having to be involved too much in the lead up to all of this stuff. But now that everybody's in place, they should be able to take more of a step back. And the only thing that Sir Jim will be doing, you know, people not making decisions himself, is looking at are the decisions we're making being successful? Are the decisions we are making working or not? And that is the job of somebody, whether they're involved in the area or not, whether they understand the area or not. It almost sometimes is better to have somebody on the outside who's not deep in to look and say with more objectivity and a little more ruthlessness, is it working or not? Because it's easy to get wrapped up in it and think it's all going well when you're heavily involved. But Sir Jim is not. And so I think that, we don't want him you don't want him picking players. You don't want him picking managers. Well, he didn't. He said, this is shit. You need to fix it. And then Barada came up with a good idea that was convincing. You see, that's how it should be. That's not the owner overstepping. That is a proper standards upholder from above. Someone saying this is shit and someone needs to fix it. And then get pushing for someone to bring them the right solution, right? That is a good thing. That is what you want. That is not overstepping it. And I understand that's, like I said, that Sir Jim's probably not going to be popular for a few reasons right now, understandably so. But the thing that should be acknowledged is he's not going to make any money from United. He'll probably own it till he dies. He's invested a lot of money into it. It's going to be a cost money dump for him. So his only intentions are for it to be successful, one way or another. And I think that that's better than you get from a lot of owners. And worth and he wants United to be successful. And he doesn't want to waste time about it. So I think that's a good thing. Regardless, intentions are important. On to transfers and sales and things like that. Not everybody is for sale. But, yes, there's a lot of players that are obviously in that need to prove themselves mode. Yeah, if you wanted to make more money, you'd invest in chemical, 100%. There's so much. Look, football clubs are, in general, a terrible investment, right? In some respect. Guy who has that much money could have doubled, tripled his money by investing it in other things and in his businesses, which he's done many times over. He's not putting his money in United to make money. It's just like, I get it, how the things that are upsetting. Like, I'm just saying he didn't raise ticket prices so that Sir Jim could take home more money. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I agree with all that. He's obviously an ultra-capitalist in the way that he approaches business, but he's not doing it to make profit. So it's not really capitalist, but it is a capitalist industry. It's very complex in that respect. Good point, Amar, but I don't know what inflation would make, but you're right about that. I was thinking Cantona makes a lot of sense. It was a hyperbole for sure. Anyway, in terms of transfers, there's few players that we obviously know that are on the outs. Christian Eriksen, Antony, and then in the long, and then Casemiro as well for sure. Lindelof is likely to go. Evans is likely to go. They're going to look at potentially letting go of Shaw and Malacia and sign left backs. We know that. And then there's a lot of players who are in their prove it mode, and that is everybody. That is literally everybody. There's a few players that are already winning on this front, and obviously people that they that they signed. They're not going to leave. Ugarte, Lenny Yoro, De Ligt, Mazraoui, all of them. But it's really prove it mode for a lot of people. They haven't made, Diogo Dalot untouchable with Madrid's interest. Obviously, he's got to prove himself too. I'm not saying they will sell him. I'm just saying everybody's in that kind of prove it mode. And so when you see stories about people like Marcus Rashford and all of that, they didn't want to sell him this summer. I can tell you that much for sure. That part of the story is not true. They did not want to sell him this summer. They didn't. There were specific discussions with Marcus about hoping and wanting him to get back up to his best. Now, there are concerns, of course, over the size of his contract and that they want to get him performing, but their priority this summer was not to sell him, but was to get, and through this year is to get him back and going. If that doesn't happen, then obviously both sides would look for a departure next summer. That's normal. That's the same as everybody. That can be made into too much of a story. He needs to get into form and have a successful season by the end of the year, for sure. Okay? But that's true of every single player at United right now. Okay? It is. And so, yeah. So we'll see where that ends up, right? But the biggest priorities in it are ages. When you look at the age profiles that they're looking at bringing in, they want to move on more of the players who are getting to the 30 and up and bring in, have two players, one in kind of closer to the prime age and one in that, 18 to 21 bracket, so that you have rotation and you have the future being built at the same time. That's the route. That's the way that they want to go. That's the model for sustained success, so that, when you bring them in, ideally the younger player replaces the older one and you bring in a younger player and you don't have to keep spending enormous sums of money. Yeah, so it is what it is. No, I understand. Look, there's talk that gets into other things, and I don't think it's the type of stuff that should be brought up in media. Whatever's true or isn't, I don't think it's the type of stuff that should be brought up in media. No, 27 is not too old. 27 is not too old. But no, look, the priority is moving players that can't get on the pitch, like Anthony, and older players. You saw Eriksen started the first game. He hasn't played. Casemiro's not really playing. Evans is not, he's going to retire anyway right at the end of the season. So there's priorities to move. Luke Shaw, his injury thing, they don't want to sit on that forever and keep wondering if he can ever play, and then he comes back for a game, then he's injured, then he comes back for a game, then he's injured. That's not going to work. Yes, they're more likely to be keeping younger players at this point in time, who still have time to prove themselves, but literally everybody has to as well. And the same names and the same positions that we've talked about otherwise are still of interest, but the left back thing was the one where it was inarguable, and so that's why they're making a move for Diego Leon. So let's talk. I'll just answer a whole shitload of questions now. Just checking. Light in the midfield. Yes, we will go for a midfielder this summer. Yeah, Sam Merritt's role has been... I don't really know exactly what it is, but I do know that he's someone that definitely, in adding to him, they've been impressed with it, with what he's done in his work so far. Was Dan directly responsible for retaining Ten Hag? Yes and no. It's not correct to put the entire blame on him. INEOS wanted to replace Ten Hag in the summer. We know that. Wilcox wanted to replace Ten Hag in the summer. We know that. Made that recommendation. And they decided and started looking. Conversations with Dan Ashworth led them, because there were other names on their list that they could have advanced on that Ashworth wasn't convinced on. And so there was discussion over potentially waiting. They would have hired Tuchel if he hadn't turned it down. So I'm trying to think, how do I describe this? Imagine there's a couple of guys that Dan Ashworth was yeah, fine, if you could get them. But they couldn't get them. And he didn't like the other names and would have preferred they wait till he get in and give him Ten Hag more time. And so that's kind of what happened. So they tried for some of the ones that he would have been okay with, but not the ones he wouldn't have been okay with. And always had the fallback option given from him to wait, and the recommendation from him that potentially would be better just to wait till he was in the building. So in essence, yes. But not fully. They should have stuck to their own guns. Dougie Friedman, interesting idea. He may be too big for the role now. Because Wilcox is doing a lot of that. Why are we not using Amos? I think physicality issues. Who those others could have been? Well, Ruben Amorim was liked for a long, long time. You go back to the Times, who I've always said are really, really, really well connected up with INEOS, as we saw before through the whole takeover. You got a story back in November that talked about United looking at Zidane and Amram, November last year. And they got banned from a press conference for that. But it was correct. It just sort of wasn't united. It was other people looking at them. But, yeah. Yeah. So Amram was one of those. Amram was one of those that they liked, but that Ashworth had concerns on even in summer. He was one of them. And that's why it was this awkward thing, you know. Again, I told you that Amram wasn't the first choice because Dan Ashworth was the guy hired to make the call. And now all these people saying that, like I said, when it came out and they were all briefing and people were giving me a rash of shit for saying that Amram was not the first choice in this whole discussion, I was 100% correct. 100% correct. Amram was not the first choice for Dan Ashworth. He didn't want him. You know, he wasn't his manager pick. And they briefed all they wanted, and now 2 weeks later, the same journalists that wrote that Amram was the first choice are now writing that the director of football didn't want him. So, like, you know, it's funny how the standards for me are higher than they are for most journalists. But anyway, it is what it is. No, look, I don't think Zinedine Zidane would have joined. Correct, United Red. I know. People went back to that like it was like, and that's what happens over time. People, because there's always briefings, right? The briefing, like, remember what was briefed in summer? By David Ornstein, no offense, that they did a review and decided that Ten Hag was the best guy for the job. Really? But now when they sacked him 3 months later and 4 months later and 5 months later, they're all writing that INEOS wanted to sack him in summer and they weren't convinced of him. Really? But then why did you write 5 months ago that he was viewed as the best option? That's just football journalism. People write to with the briefings. They write to protect their contacts. I get it. I don't blame them. But for people who read and look at this stuff, that's why I do what I do. I'm always honest with you. I'm always honest with you. It's not always in line with the club, but I'm always honest with you. I'm not always right 100% of the time, but I am always honest with you. I like Ruben Amram more. He's my first choice. It would have been very easy for me to say he's the top choice. He's the best. He's wonderful. Everybody wanted him, yada, yada. Wasn't the truth. So I didn't say that. And when it came out, I kept saying I stand by what I said, that he was not the first choice manager. And he wasn't. But it doesn't matter because the guy who didn't want him is no longer here because he wasn't his first choice. So that's fine with me. Ornstein gets some stuff from Barada, surely, probably. DZ gifted 5 memberships. What? Holy shit, that's so nice. Liam Clark, Glenn, Tiago, Mesh, DZ. Wow, that's... thank you. That's awesome. That's a very nice thing. I didn't even know you could do that. That's like Twitch or whatever, right? When people give, like, subs. Thank you for that. And for the people who got that, yeah, you can type and you'll get a little logo and stuff. DZ, thank you for your honesty. Appreciate that, man. That's awesome. Really nice. Really nice. Do you think we'll sell enough in January, summer to spend big, given that the transfer fees are spread out over the length of the player's contract? Yeah, some of them. Yep. Yeah, thanks, man. Really appreciate that. And if you keep that sub going, it changes from a Muppet tiers logo to players and things like that. My Potter scare mark. Well, did you see the list that came out? Did you see the... I know it has the membership. I have members here. I just didn't know you do like that gifting thing. You know what I mean? I've seen that on Twitch a lot, but I've never seen like yeah. But do you see the list from Ashworth? Right? Thomas Frank. And that was what I said on... Remember the day that we sacked Ten Hag, I said the 2 names, Amram and Thomas Frank. Well, guess what? Amram was Barada's first choice, and Frank was Ashworth's first choice. Now, I think Frank is still a good manager, mind you, but the other names are like Potter and stuff like that. So the 2 names that I had were the 2 first choices for the 2 people who were involved in making the decision. It's just one of them was fairly indecisive about it. But yeah, thank you, DC. Again, really appreciate that, man. Frank is a good manager. You can see that again this year. He's doing really good work with Brentford. I think he will be a top manager. But the other names, yeah. The other names I would have to cope really, really hard. I think Ashworth just doesn't have the experience outside England to do it. That's one of the issues, right? He's a very English-oriented manager. Yeah. No, honestly, I think everybody at this point looks at Thomas Frank and is like, that's a good manager there. We'll see where he ends up, but yeah. I think Pletty, if you go by Pletty's stuff, look, we're selling 15 players and buying 15 players, all from the Bundesliga. If you go by Pletty's stuff, you gotta take some of it a little bit lightly, in my opinion. The original first choice was Tuchel. No, not even. It was just he was just one that INEOS liked because Sir Jim knew him from his Chelsea time. That Ashworth was okay with. So it was sort of like that would have been like a compromise choice, basically. Tuchel. Now, he was not really first choice ever. He was first choice in the circumstances, but not really first choice overall. Do you think Ratcliffe will pay for part of the new stadium in return for more equity from the Glazers? I do think that is a sincere possibility, yes. Because I think, like, if you look at it, let's say the club's worth $5 billion, and he puts in $500 more million to help for the stadium, and he takes 10% equity for that. The Glazers lose $500 million, but what if the club goes up $6 billion in value then? Well, then they've gained some of that money back. It's a new stadium, and then it probably would go even higher. I mean, if they get a new stadium with 100,000 seats and the revenue streams and things that are possible, then you could see the club double from $5 billion to $10 billion in value. Then they could make more. They would have more money than they had before, you know. But Sir Jim was deciding on a manager before summer because nobody else was there, you know. Because nobody else was there. Glenn gifted. That's so nice. Again, appreciate that. Thank you for doing that. Wow, what a day. You guys are awesome. Truly awesome. Thank you for that, Glenn. Parth, you got a membership from Glenn. ASL, Amar, Alicia, Nick. That's awesome. Yeah, owning a football club isn't bad. Well, for the Glazers, it's been very profitable. So I think Rashford's getting pushed. That's why Garnacho keeps playing a spot even after generational singers. No, give it time, but we'll see. Am I awesome, James Lemuel? Yes, Suckhurst, you are. But yes, Glenn, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. That's really, really, again, really kind. Thank you. Sharon, hope Ruben work. Neither Sporting or us can win at the end. Yeah, it is interesting to see Sporting go and lose 4 games in a row after losing Emran. That seems like it caused a real emotional blow to them to lose him. That's I did not expect them to fall apart quite so much. Anything on Ahmad's new contract? I think it's fine. I don't have details, but as I said on the last time, once the manager changed, I have no concerns that this was going to happen now, and he's very open to it. Thank you, Sharon, for that. But thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everybody. That's awesome. The whole chat could someday be green. All we need is 640 more members to join. But thank you, Glenn. Really means a lot. Are we still interested in Nippon? Yes. Oh, I asked somebody about that. Hold on. Good. Thank you for reminding me, because I meant to get back to this person. Shit. I missed it. With Nippon, he really would like to join United himself still. And if United are they're still interested in that position, but they haven't decided whether to make a move for him or not. But there's some players that could join on in things like camp or trial, things like that. And I asked Frederick, who's a good, you guys know Frederick, right? He's a Norwegian, wonderful guy. And I asked him, and I think he'd be someone to follow his stuff on this, because I think he's got a good line on it. and I asked Frederick on this. So I don't want to. I'm not taking credit for this. This is because I asked Frederick if he knew anything else about this. Because there were some stories about like United already like lined up his signing, and I don't. And as far as I can tell, that's not true. It's not done. It's not. Nothing's agreed. But the player would love to join United, and there have been discussions. But yeah, I keep an eye. Frederick will probably have something on this if it starts to develop more. So definitely, please keep an eye on Frederick's a wonderful guy, well connected, good friend of us, who's been was one of the first people like in the space that connected with us, like with me, like 4 or 5 years ago on just as a community when Ollie was here, when he kind of had his connections and all of that, but yeah, really nice guy. So make sure you follow him. And he will have potentially more on this, hopefully soon. The body language of Barada with Wilcox for Barada to Ashworth made it clear there were some disagreements for sure. I would agree. Look, familiarity matters. Familiarity does matter. And it's more like in a high environment, having someone that you have an established relationship with is not a bad thing, even if it can seem like, sometimes jobs for the boys. But but if the boys are people who are competent and you know them and they align with you, then sometimes that's a good thing. What senior left wing back are we targeting for January? So still, I believe we're interested in the names that I mentioned before. Davies, Kirkes, Ait-Nouri. I believe we would eliminate Alvaro Fernandez with the signing of Diego Leon if it goes through. Yeah. Is Amorim City's first choice and that's why they extended Pep? I'm pretty solid in the information that they wanted Amorim. Yeah. I don't know about first choice. I think it was what's his name? Xabi Alonso. Southampton's bitter tweet about Wilcox leaving his class as well. Yeah, look, Wilcox is class. I kept, and that's the other thing, I kept telling you Wilcox was impressing people. I kept hearing it, and I've become a big Wilcox fan from everything that I've heard since he joined. Big Wilcox fan, and he's set for more responsibility. He's been impressive, and it doesn't help obviously that he knows Omar, but been impressive. They've been really liked what Wilcox has brought to the table so far. Honest assessments, honest decision making, very decisive, very direct. People I've spoken with who've spoken to Wilcox have told me he's got his shit together, like really, really has his shit together, and is one of the most intelligent people, even if not the most experienced at like top level, but really, really has his head on straight. And that's a good thing. Someone I started to value. So hopefully he sticks around. There could be more changes to come, by the way. Not necessarily as high level, but more changes to come. I think they're still not impressed on the medical side of things as well, which is something that did fall under Dan Ashworth's purview as well, on improving that area. And I think that they still have major concerns that has not been up to par. That it's still been taking too long for players to get back, and still a few too many injuries and things like that. Watch along tomorrow. Yes, indeed. We will do a pre-match tomorrow before the Europa League match. We don't do the votes for the Europa, by the way. I saw somebody ask a while ago. Friday, we will do a live with votes for the weekend game. I keep the votes only to the Premier League because the idea is the first team, and generally in the Prem you want to play your first team more often, and you rotate where you can in games like the Europa until later in the season. But the votes are for the Premier League. But we will do still a pre-match live tomorrow morning, and then we'll have a watch along for the Europa game, and then we'll do a live on Friday as well. And I need to find a time to do a new tactics one within all of this too. I just haven't had the time. Wilcox and Vavell move up and I think that is what's going to happen. I think Wilcox and Vavell will have a higher responsibility. I think Darren Fletcher, who's will maybe potentially move up a little bit from being on the pitch so much, because he's been sticking around, and so I think between all of them they can absorb most of the roles and then maybe add somebody else into there. Do you think India will play? Oh, and that's the other thing that was confirmed, by the way. Again, this goalkeeper front. The United are looking for goalkeepers. Henry Winter said on Paddock will be in for Gyökeres in the summer. I don't think we will. Right now, I don't think we will. It's just my opinion. I've not heard anything to suggest we will or won't as of yet. But I don't think that strikers is a decided priority as of yet. And I think that the things that are showing up and not to say we're not interested in Gyökeres, but two problems. Number one, I think we'll have too many priorities before striker. And two, I'm not sure that he will want to join us. And that there will be other clubs that will be in for him first while we still have a lot of other priorities to deal with. That's why I don't think it'll happen. Not to say United won't like him or something, but that's why. Like, I think we'll need 1 to 2 defenders and 1 to 2 midfielders first. And we'll need to move some players on. So I just don't see it being realistic. And we have a lot of forwards. I mean, strikers, Yeah, fixing the rest. And I think by the end of the season, we'll see strongly that we need to fix the rest of the season. And then a striker's like the cherry on top type of thing. But yeah, goalkeepers, United looking at backup goalkeepers. Yeah, I don't know names beyond James Trafford. Maybe they're still interested in Zion Suzuki. Because they were. Hopefully your doctor is better than United's in last season. Yeah, well, we'll see. Okay, this has been great. Just over an hour now, so I'm going to end it here. My voice is starting to crackle a little bit. But yeah, I really appreciate it. 10 people, 10 gifted members to this channel today. Really, really nice. Appreciate that again to Glenn and DZ for doing that. Thank you so much. Appreciate all the people who have been members as well, signed up, some of you for months now. I really appreciate you all, and I appreciate every one of you regardless for being here, for watching, for spending time with me, for following, for being a part of the channel and the community, for being the fans and all of that. It means a whole lot. It means a whole lot. We'll be back tomorrow. And hopefully times to come. It's going to take time, obviously, fixing all this, but hopefully good times to come and that the right things happen. Each game, I think we're learning a lot from the losses, and I think we'll start to see another leap. I think it's kind of like you go up, you get crashed back down, you figure out what's wrong, and that leads you to go higher, and then you figure out what's wrong, and it leads you to go higher, and eventually we will all get there, and we'll all get there together. Your chat is not toxic. I noticed. That's a breath of fresh air. Well, that's definitely an intention and an intention of the way that we built the community. And here's this guy just to prove you wrong from the Tottenham fan or whoever he is. But anyway, yeah, that's the intention of the community. Always to take a look at things from a more level-headed side of all of that. Supporting and going backwards without Ruben. Yeah, 4 in a row they've lost. So, all right, thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. I will see you all later. Have a good one. All right. Enjoy your days, and